Hello YouTube, Tristan Blaze, and I want to talk to you about the green creatures that come from the red land. No, not Martians, but goblins. This is another legacy deck tech for a mono red goblin build. Goblins were at one point in time the preeminent tribal deck in Legacy. Now we have, with True Name Nemesis coming out, players switching over to Merfolk, or you have combo elves or aggro elves running out and taking the tribal slot, the tribal spot from goblins and making it more I would say a tier 1.5 deck in Legacy right now. But you have seen a resurgence in goblins recently with a red-white build splashing cards like Thalia, Wear and Tear for certain matchups, or a red-black build splashing black for Cabal Therapy, Perish, Engineered Plague, Dread of Night for Death and Taxes, Wart, Boggart, Ante, and Warren Weirding in various situations. And even so, you've actually seen a 3-color build that splashes both white and black to get some of the best cards from each splash. This is going to be a mono red build. I'm going to eventually, and by eventually I mean, within a year hopefully, follow it up with a red-white and a red-black deck tech for Legacy Goblins. So let's get into it. We're going to go with the core cards first, then our toolbox, then our mana base and sideboard. So right off the bat, we have our 4 Goblin Lackeys. Relatively simple. You kind of want to lead off with Lackey. First turn Lackey, it swings, it connects, you end up getting the ability to put another goblin into play for free, which can lead to some pretty degenerate turn 2 or 3 situations where you end up having Lackey swing, drop a Warchief, and then next turn you already have a Piledriver, you drop another Piledriver from the one you drew and just swing for a boatload of damage. I recommend Goblin Lackey over Warren Instigator. Warren Instigator is a great card. It's got the double strike ability, so you can stack it. You can, first hit, Matron comes into play, tutor up a goblin, and then drop that goblin that you just tutored up off of the regular combat damage. However, with Warren Instigator, I would need some form of mana accelerant. Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide, something to that effect. Some people have had success with the Warren Instigator. I've tested it. I'm still on the fence. I mean, I could put it in there. Maybe it could be Lackeys, 5 and 6, or even Lackeys 5 through 8. It all depends on what I want to run. Right now, I don't want to run it. I just want Goblin Lackey. We come into Piledriver. Now, some decks run... I run 4 Piledrivers. I've seen some decks that run 1, 2, or 3. I prefer 4 right now because we are an aggro deck. We don't have access to Goblin Recruiter and just stack our deck and combo out. Okay, we don't have access to that because it's banned. We try to win as fast as we can. With the rise of True Name Nemesis, you see more blue decks popping up now because people want to run True Name Nemesis. Having Pro Blue is great because they can't block it. So, I mean, I run 4. You might run 3, you might run 2, it all depends. I prefer 4. Now we come to Goblin Matron, our tutor, that helps us tutor up Toolbox goblins, any other various goblins we might need, Ringleader, Warchief, what have you. Relatively simple. This is our, our 3 mana cost tutor. That's it. It's a tutor, and it works great. I like Gempalm Incinerator. You can run Tarfire in Mono Red. It deals 2 damage. It's a goblin card. It's a goblin instant, which can be tutored with Matron. Can't go into your hand with a Goblin Ringleader. So, it depends on what you want. I like Incinerator. 2 reasons why. One, there's basically, in Legacy, there is basically 2 ways to stop. Well, there are a few ways to stop Incinerator from actually dealing damage. One is Stifle. Number 2 is Trick Bind or Void Slime. I don't really see people running Void Slime in Legacy. But, hey, if you do and you got it, run with it. Why not? You have Pithing Needle and you have Revoker. These are the only cards that can really stop Incinerator from cycling. With cards like Tarfire, you have to run into counter magic then, which is a little bit more difficult to work around to some degree than just, cycle Incinerator and deal X damage. Second reason, it's a goblin. It's a creature. It's an actual creature. So if I actually have to, I can put it into play. There have been games where I've actually dealt the last few points of damage with an Incinerator in play. The opportunities are few and far between, but it does work. Then we come to our Warchief. 3 mana, 2/2, give all your goblins haste and all your goblin spells cost 1 less. Relatively simple. It speeds up your deck, makes all your guys attack the turn they come into play. You really can't beat that. Then we got our Ringleaders. These guys basically just can fill your hand. Now, a lot of people go ahead, they'll either Aether Vial in a Ringleader, or Lackey in a Ringleader, or hardcast the Ringleader, and you flip your 4 cards, you reveal 4 land. People think, well, that was a crappy top 4 with your Ringleader. Look at it from this situation. You would have drawn those 4 dead cards basically. Now, unless you honestly needed 4 land or 3 land and another Aether Vial over the next 4 turns, how bad was that draw? How bad was just bottom decking 4 cards? In other situations, and that's why if you get a Ringleader where it's just literally just 4 dead cards that are just land, and you bottom deck them, hey, that's a good thing. You don't have to draw those cards anymore. And then if you get like the nut Ringleader where you just pull 4 freaking goblins out, it's even more insane. But normally, from my experience, I normally average about 2 goblins and just 2 like land or Aether Vial cards. So it's great. You get to, you have the option to refill your hand basically, which is good. In some situations, this is an ancestral recall for goblins. In others, it's, bottom deck 4 useless cards. So it works. It's kind of like a pseudo brainstorm in my eyes if you get it working right. And this is your core. This is your core of the goblin deck. So now we're going to run into our toolbox. Skirk Prospector. You can use this as mana accelerant. It works really good as a mana accelerant, but also the reason why I have it in here is I have it to tutor up for playing against Dredge. Simply put, you just sack a goblin and just get rid of their bridges. When playing against Dredge, if it is manaless Dredge, you want to be faster than them. You want to get rid of their bridges to make it harder for them to just clog the board with zombies. You want to grind them out in that fashion. Skirk Prospector helps because you can just sack goblins and, you know, just remove a bridge from below. That's how you would do it. You know, remove like 1, maybe 4 copies. It all depends. Stingscourger, I got 1 copy in the main. Remove problematic creatures. Or show and tell matchups. Bounce an Emrakul, bounce a Grizzlebrand, you know, something to that effect. You know, I'm not really worried about the echo cost, because normally when I cast Stingscourger or Violet in, or say it comes into play off of a show and tell, I'm just trying to get rid of something that I don't want you to have. That's the main reason why I have it. Mogg War Marshall, it's a good card. You get 3 creatures for it. You get 3 creatures for 2 mana. Comes into play with a token, goes to the graveyard. From play, you get another token. Now, that being said, it does work relatively well with a Skirk Prospector and a Goblin Warchief, because you basically will spend your 1 red, cast your Mogg War Marshall, get a token, sack the War Marshall to the Prospector, get another token, and then sack the other 2 tokens. You end up having basically a Dark Ritual for red. I've had that happen maybe 2 or 3 times. It's decent to do that if you have, like, you know, other cards you want to cast, say Ringleader or Matron or something else. But in reality, the chances of you doing that consistently are non-existent. I mean, consistently pulling that off in a tournament, not always going to happen. Now we come to the artifact hate. Artifact hate for goblins is predominantly going to be Tuk Tuk Scrapper, a singleton copy of that, or it's going to be Tin Street Hooligan, or it's going to be Wear and Tear. Now, I like Goblin Tinkerer. I run a lot of decks that have low mana cost artifacts, you know, Pithing Needle, Engineered Explosive, Sensei's Divining Top, Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, Artifact Lance for Affinity, you know, LEDs, Lotus Petals, and most of the time when I play, it's the low mana cost artifacts that are the real pain in the ass. You know, the opposing Aether Vial in a mirror match, or the opposing Aether Vial for Death and Taxes. And having the ability to have more of just a one-shot nuke an artifact, I've found is a little bit better, especially against, you know, Affinity. You want to grind them out. So, you know, being able to nuke your Ornithopter, or, you know, Signal Pest, or Mox Opal, Artifact Land, Springleaf Drum, Paradise Mantle, what have you, and, you know, consistently keep doing that turn after turn, does help grind you out. Now, if you're playing against like Mud or Welder stacks or Mono White stacks, Tinkerer is basically a one-shot deal. So, depending on what you play against, what constantly shows up at your tournaments, depends on what you fit in your slot. Me, the Tinkerer works fine. You know, if I'm going to go to a Star City Games event, I'm probably going to run something else. But for now, Tinkerer works great. And then we got our Sharpshooter. Real simple, you know, tap, deal 1 damage, creature hits the graveyard, you untap it. Now, creature hits any graveyard. So it could be one of your creatures, one of your opponent's creatures. So it's all good. This actually, if your opponent doesn't have a Lord in play, Elf decks, Merfolk decks, to some degree can be pretty much slaughtered by this one card. Which is why I keep it. Chieftain, new edition, relatively simple. You know, give your other goblins haste and pump them up. This is your Lord for the deck. You know, some guys run 2 copies. I prefer the singleton copy, simply because that's how I'm playing right now. Then we got our Krenko. This guy, when you get him out, if you have enough goblins in play, you can end the game quickly just by tap it and, you know, pump out, you know, 8 more tokens. You know, 8 more goblins, that's it. He can seal the deal quickly. Same with the Siege Gang Commander. Now, a lot of people run him, a lot of people don't run him, you know, it depends on how you do it. I've actually won games with a Siege Gang, a Prospector, and a Sharpshooter in play, simply by just sacking goblins for mana, untapping Sharpshooter, pinging for 1, using Siege Gang to ping for 2. It can work. It depends on how you want to play it. I like it. I'm keeping it in the deck. That's how I want to do it. Then we got our Aether Vials. Real simple, you know, tap, put a creature into play. With counters equal to it. That's, you know, if you can't lead off with a Lackey, lead off with an Aether Vial on turn 1. Cavern of Souls has allowed the deck to actually have a resurgence because you can get around counter magic a bit more efficiently now. This is, you know, this is kind of like Aether Vial, to where you can just work around Force of Wills, Dazes, Spell Snares, you know, what have you. Really good, speeds up the deck, and if you're running multicolor, you can tap it for whatever color. Ports and Wastelands for your mana denial strategy. Running 12 mountains. Obviously, if you have a splash, you're going to run variations of duels, basics, and fetches for whatever color you need. Now on to the board. 3 Pyroblast for, you know, basic blue creatures, counter magic, things like that. Possibly combo. 4 Thorns of Amethyst, combo matchups. Faerie Macabre, or Macabre, whatever. This is more likely going to be used against Reanimator strategies. Dredge, you're not, you know, 2 cards from Dredge is really not going to kill him. But Reanimator, Reanimator it does pose more of a threat to. With Dredge, you mostly just want to nuke their yard. With Reanimator, you just want to take out their targets and keep them off of putting something into play. And then I'm running 4 Pyrokinesis simply for that random need to run free burn, or in the elf matchup, it's to some degree a board wipe or a partial board wipe against an elf deck. That being said, you know, I might go with something else. So this has been Legacy Goblins.